Ladies and gentlemen, I have a confession. The iPhone 13 is better than the iPhone 14, while also costing a cheaper price. And the reason that I say this is because when it comes to making a purchase decision, most people not only look at price, but the value that they're getting for said price. The iPhone 14 is $800 and the iPhone 13 is $700. And based on those two factors alone, I don't see why anyone wouldn't get the iPhone 13 over the iPhone 14. Essentially, the iPhone 13 is the exact same phone that you're getting for a cheaper price. It has the exact same A15 Bionic chip as the iPhone 14 and is also powerful enough to handle any app smoothly. It has an amazing battery life that was able to last me all day with no problem. It has a beautiful display that looks really great when using it, and it has an amazing build quality that lasted me very well up until this point. And even though there are many good things to be said about the iPhone 13, it's not perfect and has given me some problems. There are some software bugs that can really get annoying. The battery is good, but once the iPhone 14 came out, it's gotten worse. And last but not least, that 60 Hz refresh rate is completely outdated and needs to go. And despite these obvious cons, I do believe that there are many people who will like the iPhone 13, and hopefully this video will help you decide whether or not it's right for you. Now, starting with design, the iPhone 13 has that signature look that is still implemented on the newer iPhone 14, and I really like it since it's the more updated version of the previous iPhone 12 with its smaller notch, and it has a very boxy frame that reminded me of the iPhone 4S. And I also really like how it has the displays, from the iPhone 10 and up, so it gives me a very futuristic yet reminiscent feel. And besides the minor details implemented, this phone looks the exact same as the iPhone 14, from the power button, volume rockers and mute switch, all the way down to the speakers, lightning port, and the back. But looking at its color, the version that I have is blue, and I think that it really looks good. It has that darker matte blue sides along with the true blue glass back that gives it that right amount of depth and results in a really good looking device. Now, looking at display, the iPhone 13 has a 6.1 inch OLED display that's pretty much just like the iPhone 14, which means that in terms of display, you're getting a bang for your buck. Whenever I was scrolling through my phone, it looked very good. Everything looked nice. The responsiveness was very precise, and I had no complaints about the overall feel, but the only problem that I had with it was the refresh rate. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the 60 Hz is really good on the iPhone 13. Maybe it's because I'm a tech nerd, but I really wish they would implement a 120 Hz refresh rate, especially since you guys are paying over $700 for it. But if we are judging the iPhone 60 Hz compared to any other phone 60 Hz, this is definitely a smoother screen. And even though the 60 Hz was fresh and smooth, there were some apps that didn't really work with it. Like for example, when I was testing out the iPhone 13 mini, I went on Eventbrite and the screen was about 48 Hertz. So I'm thinking maybe this is a problem with my iPhone 13 mini. But what I also did was I went on my iPhone 13 and I went on Eventbrite. And yeah, it was the same problem. Like, I'm trying my best to make the 60 Hertz work, but it's just not working. Now, quick disclaimer, every other app works with 60 Hertz, everything works fine, but there are some apps that aren't, they're trying to hit 60 Hertz, but they're not. Now, looking back at the display, the bezels are pretty small. Right here, you can see that they're wrapped nicely around the screen and are much cleaner overall. The notch is very small, so it's not as noticeable when compared to older iPhones. Now, when it comes to brightness, the iPhone 13 is at 800 nits, which is the exact same as the iPhone 14 and 14 Plus. And I really noticed the difference when I was outside. I had a little bit trouble when seeing the screen outside, and because I live in LA, there's much less shade, so there were many times where I couldn't see at all when the sun was out. And now when it comes to the size of the iPhone 13, I can't say whether or not you guys will love it or hate it, but I do want to list some pros and cons so that you can know what to look out for. Now, the pros of having a nicely sized screen is that the viewing experience is still really good. It's very easy to use compared to the 14 Plus, where I would struggle to reach the top of the screen, and it fits in my pocket much easier no matter the size of my pants. And the only con is that it's not as big as the Plus or Pro Max, so the viewing experience won't be as good, but 6.1 inches is not really small, so there really aren't any true cons. But again, I want to let you guys decide if the pros are worth the upgrade because everyone's needs are different. Now, another problem that I had with the display was the fact that Apple still hasn't added a fingerprint sensor, and I think that the iPhone has the best facial recognition in the game with Face ID, but it still would have been nice to have an extra way of unlocking my phone. The resolution and viewing experience of the iPhone 13 is an amazing benefit when it comes to the display. I was able to see everything very clearly when watching videos. Playing games on it was as fun as ever, and I really want to give you guys an idea of what it will look like when watching something and playing the game. Now the iPhone 13 has a 3200 milliamp hour battery that is the exact same as the iPhone 14 and was pretty much able to last me all day. And mind you, I'm the type of person that is usually on my phone doing things like planning videos, writing scripts, watching YouTube, watching movies, texting my friends on social media, and basically anything else that involves regular use. And with as much regular use as possible, I'm usually getting over 7 hours of on-screen time a day, and I only charge my phone when I'm sleeping. I was also using my 13 on power saving mode, but most of the time I did use it to the max and it was still able to perform very well. So if you do get the 13, battery won't be an issue. And if I could give you guys a quick estimate, I would say that my battery is usually on 10% by the end of the day, which is really good, but a little bit less than my 14. And right now my battery health is at 95%, which hopefully will keep up longer. Previous iPhones are known to have the battery significantly drop after a few months of use, but the iPhone 13 has been performing very well, and it's definitely aging better than my iPhone 12. Now the last thing that I wanted to touch on when it came to the battery was the charging, and if I'm being honest, the charging isn't as great in terms of speed. It would take me well over an hour to get to 100%. But like I said before, you only get one charge, so I think the long-lasting battery is a great trade-off. Now looking at software, the iPhone 13 supports iOS 16, and just like on any other iPhone, you have the app drawer that holds and categorizes all your apps. You have the new wallpaper system that is a huge upgrade and feels much smoother on this phone, and you have many more minor things that make the phone feel even sleeker. And just like I say with any other iPhone, just because it's designed to be sleek doesn't mean that it'll work in everyday use. And also, just like the 13, there were many times where it would freeze on me at the most important times. And by most important times, I mean when I'm driving. Now, I'm gonna give you guys two scenarios. I'm usually on my phone using CarPlay. Either A, I'm talking on the phone, or I'm listening to music. And both times, my phone has completely shut down on me. And not only has it shut down on me, but it's randomly gotten hot. You know that compartment where you just put stuff in? I always have my iPhone in there, and it just randomly gets really hot, and the software gets super buggy, and my GPS stops working, and my phone just shuts down on me. Real scenario. And mind you, no direct sunlight, it's not hot in there. I have the air on, everything is fine, but my phone would just get really hot. And I don't know if it's because it's also plugged in, but it's really annoying. And besides the frequent freezes, most of the time the software was very smooth and worked very well. It felt just like the 14. And I also talked to some friends and they didn't encounter this problem. So I feel like if you don't get those problems, most of you guys will realize that in terms of software, it's not really that much different from other models. I also decided to test out some games on the 13. Right now I'm playing Asphalt 9, which is a game that can really test out the chip. And as you can see, it held up very well and I didn't really get any lags while playing. Now on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give the haptics on the iPhone 13 I want to say a 6. And the reason that I give it a 6 is because I also do work in the film industry. So a lot of jobs that I get are by text message or email, and I make sure to have my notifications really up for those specific, notifications. And there were many times throughout my day where, I would get notified that I have a job, but I didn't really notice it at all. And because I get notified, through text message and email for these jobs, there's a 50-50 chance that I won't hear it. Like I'll be editing and doing some work, and then I'll come back to my phone and I've missed 2 job notifications. And because the haptics are kind of trash, I have to put my phone on ringer during the day, and I prefer vibrate. But besides the poor haptics, the final thing that I wanted to note is that the iPhone 13 will be getting 4 to 5 years of software upgrades. So when it comes to longevity, it's pretty much got you covered. Now, just like the 14, the 13 has some really loud speakers that were pretty good whenever I used them. I'll usually use them in the house whenever I'm watching videos on social media or YouTube. And I didn't really have to turn it all the way up because of how loud they were on the lower tiers of volume. I also tested out how they sounded when playing music. And if I'm being honest, they're loud, but the quality isn't the greatest when the volume gets to the max. I also tested my 13 as my alarm, and I had no problem waking up to it. I even took a really big risk and didn't set multiple alarms, and I was really impressed how I really only needed one alarm to wake up. And also, I didn't really have to worry too much about receiving important notifications whenever I turned on my ringer. And right here, I'm going to give you guys an idea of how the speakers sound. Now the iPhone 13 has a 12 megapixel main camera along with a 12 megapixel front and 12 megapixel ultra wide, and based on my usage over the past year, I would say that the pictures looked amazing. Now starting with zoom modes, the iPhone 13 has a couple of different zoom modes, and of course the quality gets dumbed down a bit once you get closer, but I found every picture to be great when compared to other smartphones. And just like every other iPhone, the shutter speed was very good from the start. I decided to test this out by shooting moving cars, and as you can see right here, the camera was able to capture most cars beautifully, no matter how fast they were going, so I was pretty much satisfied. Now something that I really think will help you guys is me showing you how the camera performs in different environments, and the first environment that I'm going to start with is daytime. Now looking at the outside photos, we can see that they have a really great shadow of depth whenever I'm taking pictures of myself, along with a nice blur, and this is scaled all the way up once I use the portrait mode that Apple has always been pretty good at. I also took some photos of random street objects, the sky, different aspects of nature, and I can honestly say that the 13 held up very well in these environments, and I'm really impressed. And in the night setting, I would pretty much say that everything looked good. The camera will automatically switch to night mode, and once I snap the shot, it will brighten up everything in the photo so that you can see everything very clearly. Again, it really looked good, and the only complaint that I have is the shutter speed when going into night mode. Now taking a look at inside photos, the 13 was able to capture everything very nice, and I found the pictures to be slightly more detailed than the 12 in terms of sharpness. Even when taking selfies, you can see how the camera handles already good lighting to produce an overall nicely taken photo. My skin tone looked really good, and the sharpness was at its peak. And now when it comes to shooting video, the 13 is easily one of the best older phones that you can buy in this price range. You have many different modes and frame rates to choose from, starting from HD all the way up to 4K at 30 frames to 60 frames per second. And honestly, I prefer to shoot my videos in 4K at 30, but 4K 60 is also a great option. Now the stabilization was pretty much out of this world. I shoot videos with my phone, so whenever I'm shooting my subject, I can use everything handheld, and the movements are very smooth, which was really impressive. And for fun, I decided to test out the stabilization to the max. And if you are someone who wanted to get the newer model for action mode, I feel like most of you guys will be completely fine with regular stabilization, especially since the action mode will also dumb down the video quality, so it's not really needed, and the 13 is perfect. So all in all, I would say that the iPhone 13 has an amazing camera that will give you consistently good shots. So if you're someone who wants to shoot content, or you just want a solid camera, the 13 is definitely a great choice. And also, here are some extra shots that I was able to get. So here's the final question. Is the iPhone 13 worth it in 2023? Well, I would say that the iPhone 13 is totally worth it, especially if you don't want to spend a bunch of money. It has a great battery that can last you all day. It has a nice display that is the exact same as the newer iPhone. It has great build quality that has lasted me nicely up until this point, and it supports the latest version of iOS, so it'll feel even more up to date. So if you are someone who prefers the iPhone 13, it's definitely a phone that you'll be satisfied with. And also, it's slightly cheaper than the iPhone 14, so that's an added benefit. But there it is, my review on the iPhone 13. And also, if you guys have any extra questions about the iPhone 13, you can ask them in the comment section down below. And not even just the iPhone 13, if you have any extra questions, you can still ask them down below, and I'm gonna see you guys on the next one. Peace.